All right, what's up, y'all? Temu here. My name is Temu, better known as an artist. I'm a funk artist, do modern funk, funk music, legacy funk music, boogie, disco, whatever you want to call it. I'm extremely famous. There's a lot of people that know me around the world. That's why you've never heard of me before. Anyhow, I want to wrap up this year with a little note to all of my funksters out there. Producers, singer-songwriters, dancers, rappers, anyone who tends to operate under the funk, the modern funk motif, who appreciates the music. I think there's been a very important part of the essence of funk that's been lost over the years, and I'm going to try and break this down to you guys. I'm going to keep it simple and I'm going to try and keep it short. But the first thing we want to do is try to cover, well, what is funk? So the way I want you guys to think of this is sort of like 4 different trains of thought. Okay, so it's like 4 dimensions. So the first, most simplest dimension will be funk as a word. So funk, funky, the adjective. Right, and then after that, we're gonna look at funk as a genre, right? Objectively as a genre. Next, we're gonna look at funk within the idea of 2 movements, 2 separate movements. That's gonna be a physical movement, the dancing, and the last one is a social, conscious movement. Okay, so let's just quickly go over the funk word. Funk is a word that's been around since the 1700s. Around the early 1900s, folks had begun using it with regards to the idea of describing music. Between the 17 and the 1900s, the word funk, and it's always been known as something associated with, a smell, like a musky smell, right? But at some point coming into the 1900s, that musky smell, the idea of this musky smell, was also being associated with the idea of earthly or human, right? Sort of down to earth. So coming into the 1900s, some of your early iterations of jazz, before it was called jazz, and people were using this word to describe aspects of music. Coming into, say, around the 60s or so, you had your 4 pioneer pillars of funk music, right? That starts with James Brown. You also have Art Neville of the Meters. You got Sly and the Family Stone, and you got, of course, George Clinton. Now, here's the thing about these 4 pioneers. They were all born in the South. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the funk was born in the South. It was not born in the West Coast or even the East Coast. You can argue for the better part of the East Coast. That was where the funk was cultivated. That's where it was developed. But the only reason why it was that way is because the places that the funk was developed was determined on where the studios were that these bands were signed to. Right, so that's the only thing that matters. And wherever these bands were signed to, the studios they were working, that's the most important thing, especially at that time. This was a place where they can kind of be shielded from all the madness going on for those few minutes or hours, and focus on their art. Right, you're not going to be making this in a environment full of constant madness like that. Right? You need at least a few hours for you to concentrate. So, and that's what the studio provided, right? This is your early community centers, these music studios. I want you guys to also, take into account that music was one of the pretty much the very first thing that African descendants, African Americans were allowed to learn. Okay? So they were not allowed to learn anything else, get any form of an education, except for music. And usually that was like just haphazardly. Right? But by, your mid 50s, early 40s, mid 50s, there's of course studios all over the place, namely Motown, right, in Detroit. They were the big ones. That's where everybody wanted to get to. That's the one that everyone wanted to be like. And so it's because of these labels, PR, all the resources that they have. At some point, through the contributions of all these different artists, but mainly those four pillars, funk was able to create its own genre, right? It got its own box to check, right? And so now, coming into 2020, we can go on a whole bunch of different platforms where we're looking for music, and you can check a funk box, right? All right, so that's funk the genre. That's a genre. That's objective. That's an objective thing. It's a genre that you can, count numbers on, and you can look at insights for, and yada yada yada. The next part, the movement part. So the physical movement. All right. So just some characteristics of it. Poppers, lockers, whackers, vulgars, even house dancers, breakers, of course. One thing you're gonna find that's somewhat universal, very much a red thread through all of these dance styles, is that for the most part, while the music, it may or may not be an actual funk song, for the most part it's usually pretty funky, right? It's got all of those qualities in a song that you could express as funky, right? It's syncopated, it's swinging, right? Those kinds of things, right? You can have a rock song, but if it's swinging and it's syncopated, and if it's funky, I mean, it's probably gonna make you dance, right? Same goes for house, even, Middle Eastern folk music. If it's got the right swing, hell, it might make you get down, right? So that's sort of how the movement, the physical movement works, right? So it can be funky, it can be funk, it can be one or the other, right? But it's most likely got to be funky. It's got to have that swing to it. I'm not going to go too far in depth, on the actual characteristics of the music. I'm just kind of looking at things from more of a macro lens. And then the last thing is the conscious movement, the social movement. And this is the most important part, the most important aspect of the funk. Without this, your music and your approach runs the risk of not being able to stand the test of time. Aligning yourself with the social and the conscious movement that funk helped to bring with its style, that James Brown and George Clinton and Sly and the Family Stone helped to bring forth with their style, is the most important aspect of the music. And that is because during the times that Sly Stone, George Clinton, Art Neville, and James Brown, during the times that they were born, and they were all born in the South, there was some pretty messed up stuff going on. It was a really, really, really tough time. Bootsy Collins says this, this thing that funk is making something out of nothing, but he's being nice about this, okay? That something out of nothing is more like nothing, like a vacuum. I think a lot of people think about it like that, like an empty room. But we had a whole lot of something going on during this time. It's Jim Crow laws, all kinds of prohibition acts for housing, and it's just a mess, right? So when you hear that phrase, something out of nothing, even when it comes to hip hop, people are being nice about this. And again, if you are a big fan of the funk, you love the music, and you're very curious about more things about the era, I implore you, it is incumbent upon you to dive into the rabbit hole that is the Civil Rights Act and the different civil rights movements that has gone on throughout the U.S. because it's fluid depending on where you are. Wherever you live in the country is going to determine how you are perceived and how you are accepted in that area. The black experience is different where you go, even in the U.S. Vernacular is different, the slang is different. Sometimes, people will, sort of migrate things with them, Southern recipes, stuff like that. But for the most part, it's going to be different depending on how the local elites feel. That's the reality of it. The conscious movement that I'm talking about when it comes to funk comes from a very, very long line of a litany of different civil rights movements. Bring from way back in 1866 all the way up into today's Black Lives Matter. This is all connected. Okay? Same for, and the same goes for hip hop and other urban styles, whether that be dance styles and things like that. All of this has something to do with whatever social movement, conscious movement, or social or conscious digression, regression that's happening at the time. This is all connected. You cannot observe funk and the music in a vacuum, as in outside of the realities that were going on at the time. So if you want a true understanding of this whole funk thing, you're going to have to look a little bit deeper in history. You're going to have to deal with a little bit of pain. And I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we understand these different progressions we've been throughout time, because history is really good at repeating itself. And there's a lot of things that were happening back at that time that's just happening all over again. It's incredible to actually watch. So, first thing is funk, the word. Funk, stinky. Funky, syncopated, swingy. Funk music, the genre. You have your four pillars: James Brown, George Clinton, the Meters, Sly Stone. Funk as in a physical movement. That's your popping, that's your locking, that's your breaking, that's your whacking. You can throw in the voguing, you can throw in the house dancing too. Because again, for the most part, no matter what they're dancing to, it's probably funky. And the last one is the conscious movement. The conscious movement is the most important part of the funk. And without it, it loses its essence. And there's probably a lot of people who has done their version of funk, their take on funk music, but didn't really understand this part of the essence. And probably got a little bit of critique, and may have heard this phrase, faking the funk. For the most part, when you miss that part of the essence, you miss that aspect of the funk movement. That's very often the kind of response you're going to get, because that is the key element to the genre, to the style. How is it that you can be accused of faking the funk? So you can have a funky song, you call it funk, it makes people dance, but there's just no message to it. That's one way to do it. You could have a song that has a message to it, but it doesn't really make people dance. and it's not really all that funky. It doesn't have the elements right, or it's just not really working. But you decide to just call it funk anyway. Well, yeah, you faking the funk. You can have a song that makes people dance. It's got a good message. It's funky. And it's not funk. So then that answers your question. It's just not it. Right? But for the most part, the people who tend to contribute or co-opt this sound and will intentionally, continuously refuse to put any form of a social message, some sort of conscious movement, some sort of uplifting message, it's not going to stand the test of time. Because that is the most important asset of funk music. All right? I'm everyday people. Flashlight. Everybody's got a little light under the sun. Right? It's those kinds of things that makes funk special. And it's those kinds of messages that live a half life in your mind. All right, so coming into 2020, I want you guys to keep that in mind. Look at the world around you. Right? It doesn't have to be your black counterparts. There's a lot of areas, white, black, Asian, whatever, Latino, Hindu, Indian, whatever. There's a lot of environments that you can find a void that needs some work. It's those kinds of things that we really, really want out of the funk. And that's really what I'm trying to do with my album, Relic of the Mothership. When you look at the artwork of the album, what I'm trying to sell you is what's going on in here. Because it's the album, the artwork represents a sort of a world of inner reflection. Right? That world of inner reflection is about me trying to sort of fulfill my calling into finding the funk in me, right? And learning that it was within me all along as the relic of the mothership. All right, so that's the idea behind my album and the message that I'm trying to put out there. Look deep inside of yourself. All right, so I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff that I've missed, and artists and songs and lyrics and stuff that I didn't cover. I didn't talk about the music, the musical characteristics, deep down musical characteristics of the style. I'm not going to do that. I will and I want to, but that takes time and that takes some research and stuff like that. And I will do it. I will, put together more videos, more video footage, photos, things like that, interviews, yada, yada, yada. But I need your help, guys. It's a very noisy world out there, and I got to make some noise on YouTube. I got to get some more subscribers. I got to get more people liking these videos. I got to get people more engaging a bit more. So if you want to see more of this, I think I have a lot to offer for you guys in terms of how to make music, in terms of how to optimize your studio settings, things like that. And also giving you a sense of, just some touching on history and things like that. But I need your help. So please go to my YouTube page, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, like this video, leave a comment. You can curse me out. It's just an opinion video. Curse me out. Tell me what I was missing. I want to hear from you guys, though. But please hit me with a like. Subscribe to my channel, guys. And I got a whole lot more that I'm whipping up for you. I'm actually whipping up a little series with regards to the album. So I'm just going to kind of go through the album, just a bit of the process. We'll take a look at some, break down some of the stems and the songs, and I'll tell you a little bit about, some of the lyrics, and give you some studio tips, stuff like that. Right. So guys, hit me up. I hope you guys like the video, and I'll see you in the next one, y'all. Oh, and last thing, my album's coming out December 15th. Relic of the Mothership. It's going to be available on all digital and streaming platforms, and it's going to be available for pre-orders for CDs and vinyls, and they're going to look super cool. I am so excited to see what that's going to look like, and just like in my hand. So make sure you guys go to thesleepersrecords.com. The Sleepers Records, that's with a Z at the end, and just check back on their site, or you can go to my site, temumusic.com/album. I have a whole bunch of information about the album over there as well. So you can go there, check back every now and then. I have a Facebook event as well for Relic of the Mothership. I'm going to do a little streaming thing, just we kind of listen to the album here in my studio. We can listen to it together. All right. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace. Keep it funky.